Hi, my name is Rachel. Welcome to my channel, Learning with Boys. Today, my subject is a little bit different. I'm not even sure what to title it yet, but I want to talk to you about the curriculum that we are using this year, which is Heart of Dakota. I have a lot of people asking me what their thoughts are about what guide their child should be in. If you are not familiar with this curriculum, it follows the Charlotte Mason type style. Each guide includes every subject. So once you pick Heart of Dakota to use, they will have all their choices for grammar, for math, for history, science, electives like poetry or art. They have all those things in the guide. So it's almost like you're getting a Charlotte Mason type style all wrapped up in one. I really like how the boxes are set up. I've done a couple videos on stuff like this, but I'm just going to show you. This is my Preparing Hearts for His Glories, my son's book, and everything for day 13 of Unit 13, that's the one I opened up to, is right here. And it tells me I just have to look at each box and check it off for history, geography, language arts, poetry, math, science, Bible, and it's all right there. And it's for each subject, it's not a lot. It just tells you what chapter to read that day, etc. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't tell you exactly what guide your child should go in, but I could give you our story. So I found Heart of Dakota when my oldest was in 6th, and my next one was in 4th, and then I had a 1st grader and a little guy, probably 1 or 2. I went ahead and picked Preparing, probably not because I followed the guidelines exactly like I should, but mainly because I like the idea. I had not done just a world history in 1 year. And it was sort of like I could bind my 4th and 6th grader. I did get the extensions for my 6th grader that year, so that was helpful. And it really was a wonderful year. I think because it wasn't too much for anybody. Now, my 4th grader struggled in a lot of areas with reading and writing and things like that. So, but I don't feel like it was overly stressful for him. I will also tell you, I know it's leading towards independence, but I did a lot of the reading. I took it as a time, as family time. So I didn't, that year, even though there is a lot of independent work in the Preparing, history project, student, independent study would be independent, science experiment, the science would be independent. A lot of it's a lot of it is still teacher-led. Story time, reading history. So now science, I usually do the reading, or we'll take turns, or he'll read it out loud. A lot of times if it's them reading, I have them read it out loud. Still at this age for Preparing Hearts for His Glories. This is the first book that we experienced. And we really, really enjoyed that year. So, what did we do the next year? Did we stay with Heart of Dakota? Yes, we did. Partly. My oldest moved up into Resurrection to Reformation. I actually skipped Creation to Christ. And I'm sort of glad I did, because he was really ready to move on. Creation to Christ is good if they're not quite ready to move on. And it is really good if you haven't done any of the ancient history. But we had done some of that. So that was a really good year for him. And I will tell you again, we read a lot together. He is an audio-visual learner, but his other subject he was very independent with, like language arts and math and all those other things. He actually took a writing class at a co-op that 7th grade year. Now my 4th grader, he moved up into 5th grade. So that year I had a 7th grader, a 5th grader, a 2nd grader, and still moving up, little guy. My 5th grader, who had just done Preparing also, he really just did the basics of math and some grammar, language arts, and really he had just soaked in accomplishing to read that he just wanted to read everything in the house. So I just set up a line of books, like sort of like, I think I might have done American history, or I just tried to put them in some order and just started handing him books to read. And he just soaked information up all that year. And that is what worked for us. I did not do another guide that year. Now, the next year, my 7th, going into, I would have had an 8th grader, a 6th grader, 3rd grader, and my little guy who was not quite ready for preschool. I do know that. My 8th grader, again, skipped a book. So he went from preparing to Resurrection to Reformation to Missions to Marvel. And it really went okay in that subject. He did the science that year. He really enjoyed it. I think there was one book that we weren't that crazy about, and we let that go. He started doing a lot of the reading on his own that year. He still may have read some books together, but he started becoming more independent on the reading part. I think it was a really good year for him. I think he enjoyed it. Of course, it was American history, and he enjoyed American history. Why did we skip Revival to Revolution? At that point, he was going into 8th grade, almost high school. I sort of let him decide, and I knew that he would be okay. He did fine in Missions to Marvels, and we had done a lot of early American history study already, and I think he was just really interested to go further than that. So, and he, like I said, he did fine in it. My next one was he would have been 6th grade. He was doing Creation to Christ that year, and he did fine with that. He actually enjoyed the next book collection that he could read, and he was a little bit more of an independent reader than my oldest. He just wanted to read it, which was good, except sometimes he didn't know when to stop. So, with the curriculum, because they schedule it, to spread it out. But it was fine. It went really well. Now, his handwriting is still not perfect at that time, but he does get it done. So it's more of a struggle for him. Not that he can't do it. And then my 3rd one was in 3rd grade, and we just continued on with him with the basics. I think I added a little bit of history and science in there. And we just did read alouds with my 3rd grader and my little guy. Or the whatever books we were reading for the older boys, they would sit on and listen to. The next year, my oldest is in 9th, and he is doing world geography. My 2nd one would be in 7th, and he is doing Resurrection to Reformation. And my 4th grader, I still did not start preparing with him, and my little guy is in, that is the year we did Little Hands to Heaven. So, and the reason that worked out, and I want to say that's the year, it was either that year or the next year, but the reason that worked out is because he was my early riser, like really early, like he'd like to wake up early. So that is something that was our time together. And that program worked good for that. We could spend, 30 minutes to an hour doing some of those things. And then that was it for him. Of course, we did other things, but that was just his learning time. And he loved it. He probably wanted to get up early for that reason also. So my 4th grader, I waited one more year before I started preparing, which we started in 5th. So we'll move up one more year. My oldest is in 10th. I have an 8th grader. I have my 5th grader. We do preparing, and then I have my kindergartner. So that year, I actually only did one guide. I think that's right. 5th, 6th, 7th. Yeah. He would have been an 8th. We did not do a guide that year, but I pulled a lot from that Missions to Marvel for my 8th grader. It's just his personality a little bit, and he was doing a co-op. He was doing a couple co-op classes So it really turned out for us, that was what we needed that year. Sometimes I sort of wish I could go back and actually do all the way through. I will tell you that. But I question myself. So, but that's how it is. And maybe the Lord knew. Maybe the Lord knew that all the guys was not something I could handle that year. I don't know. So that one year, we were only doing preparing. And then the next year, we were doing world geography again with Creation to Christ. And so those are the ones that I've only done. I've done Preparing Hearts for His Glory, Creation to Christ, Resurrection to Reformation. We have done Missions to Marvel once, but it was a really good year. And I really almost regret not doing it with my 9th grader, my son who is in 9th grade this year, that I didn't do the 2 American histories. But it's all right. But I do plan, Lord willing, if nothing changes, nothing interrupts, I'm hoping to do, with my 4th grader now, we're doing preparing, I'm hoping to do Creations to Christ, and then Resurrection to Reformation, Revival to Reformation, and then Missions to Marvel. That's what I'd like to do. And then World Geography. So we'll see. And I actually want to try to do some of the sciences. I'm hoping that'll work out for my 4th grader as he moves forward now. So I'll let you know. We'll keep posted. But just wanted to give you an idea of why we made decisions. And I think it's going to be a personal decision for your family. And I just don't want you to feel pressured that I've got to have each kid in a guide. So why didn't I use the guides when my youngest was in kindergarten and 1st grade and 2nd grade? His brothers were getting older, and I just really wanted to be there for them. And I felt like at that age, if I can just getting them reading and doing their math, that is, they're ready to independently learn. And maybe that's taken me a few kids to figure that out, that's okay. But once he started preparing, he almost was a little bit lenient, because we hadn't really used a history or science. Well, we've done some science stuff, but not a particular curriculum for 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. He did a lot of interest-led learning. He read very well. He liked to write. But this year's gone really well. I think he's enjoyed it because he loves history. He loves ships and battles. So just what we read the other day. Oh, I know what it was. It was the claw. The Romans built the claw to pull the ships together so they can jump on the enemy ship. And we've talked about that with the Revolutionary War and the ships during that time. So he was like, oh. So, like I said, every family is going to be different. But I did want to share sort of what we have done, why we've done it. I guess I should mention one more thing. My 9th grader now, unless something changes, will probably do something else for U.S. history. And if you watched my high school video of how to do high school, I sort of explained why. Our goal is to get him to fill in the blanks for his requirements, and then he can have freedom for his electives, and then maybe by his senior year he could be doing dual credits. He does want to go to college, and I think that's his desire. So he doesn't actually even need another, like, world history. World geography is enough for the credit, and then U.S. history. So now I will probably, and I did this with my other boys, I pulled a lot from Heart of Dakota, from their histories, from their middle ones, and from the high schools when I did U.S. history for them. So, but I don't know for sure what I'm going to use for him. And of course, I will let you know when I finalize that. So, and also I think it'd be a little much for him because that's not his focus. He wants to learn French. He plays the piano, and I know he wants to stay on top of that. He just has some other interests. And my boys are pretty good at history in general. But I hope this was helpful to those of you who are curious about Heart of Dakota and the different guides. You really just need to look at where they would fall and be honest with yourself. Are they ready to ride or not ride? Do I have the time to help them if they need help? Because I know a lot of people look at it and think, oh, this is so independent. Well, it's really not until they start getting into the middle guides. But they do work their way through that. Like for my Preparing Hearts for His Glory, I'm trying to get him to read his science and see the questions and fill them out himself. I'm trying to train him so he will be ready for that. But that takes time. So I may try to do a video on how long it takes me to do classwork for my 4th grader and for my 9th grader, which I think probably takes longer than we want it to right now. His algebra is holding us all back. So, but I'll share that with you more in the future. I appreciate you watching. You all have a wonderful day.